Hi there, my name is Eric Calderon, and this is a course about what it takes to be an animation producer. So, before I go into a little more detail, I should tell you a little bit about myself. I've been an animation producer now for about 30 years. I actually started my career at MTV in the 90s. I was a buyer. I helped create pilots, did a lot of development work there, and ultimately put about 12 or 13 fully animated series on the air, also a few specials, worked on a couple of shorts and music videos as well. From there, I actually worked in Japan for several years, I think about 6 years. I was one of the early producers who actually tried to bring Japanese animation to the West, really learned how the Japanese animation industry worked, and ultimately produced a series called Afro Samurai, which is one of the only animated series to ever be nominated and actually win an Emmy. It starred Samuel L. Jackson. It was on a network called Spike TV. The music was done by RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, and it was really a big success. It was a really wonderful time. When I was also there, I produced Linkin Park's Breaking the Habit music video, which was done with a combination of Japanese animation, rotoscope animation, and traditional CG animation. That video went on to be awarded the MTV Video Music Award of the Year. Was really a crazy project, took about 3 months, but it was pretty intense. After my time in Japan, I actually ran my own production company called Wild Boar Media. I did that for about a decade. I was in the independent film scene at that time. I also produced some comic books, which I wrote, and then I did some other smaller productions, did some development deals. Was a difficult time, of course, because it was during the biggest economic crash of, I think, the real estate market at the time. So a lot of the industries around that time were also having a difficult time. But after running my own production company for about a decade, I became a show-by-show consultant, producer, showrunner. I actually worked on Transformers Combiner Wars and Transformers Titans Return. The first series I co-wrote and produced, and the second series I wrote entirely myself and produced. After that, I worked for the Russo brothers, the guys who did the Avengers movies. They had a division called Octopi that was trying to do some new animation, and I brought a project called Magic the Gathering, a famous card game that was actually owned by a company called Wizards of the Coast. They still own that card company now. The show was set up at Netflix, and it was a large-scale production, a lot of people involved, but ultimately it was very difficult for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro to have the same vision as the Russo brothers and Netflix to create the animated series. So it went through several rollovers of management, and I left the project at about 2020. It actually just was recently announced with the showrunner of Picard. So I think I'm glad to hear that 7 or 8 years later, after I first started on the project, it's finally going to pre-production. So that should be interesting. Following that, from 2020 to 2025, I moved to a company called Falcons Beyond, which is where I am now. I actually live in Orlando, Florida. And Falcons Beyond is part of a company called Falcons Creative Group that actually does theme park master planning and design. They've been in the theme park business for about 25 years, and they hired me to be one of the key executives helping expand some of the intellectual properties they're working on, and also help create TV, film, consumer products, and games based on stuff that they've either done in attractions or based on some independent financing or capital raise of investment that they're going to put together. The company actually went public 2 years ago. I'm currently the executive vice president of creative development, and I've kind of added themed entertainment to my full repertoire of skills as a producer. So anyway, that's me. So now you know who I am. Let's talk a little bit about what this course will involve. Really, in the idea of thinking of what it takes to be a animation producer or what it takes to be a producer, there's a lot to know, and a lot of details which I'll go into in the subsequent episodes of this series. But for this first one, I really wanted to give a very broad, high-level view and a high-level profile of the kind of person that ultimately becomes a successful producer, so that you, the person watching, kind of really just figure out, is this really me? Is this the kind of person that I am? Do I align with many of these traits or all of these traits or a few of these key traits? Because even when you separate the specifics of the industry knowledge. It does take a certain kind of person to be a producer. So let's break down what those things are. So I've broken it down into relatively 7 characteristics. They're somewhere between a personality type, a propensity, and maybe an area of interest. So let's just start from the top. I think the first thing that it takes to be a creative producer is to be extroverted. So a producer, without going into all the details, is going to be out there all the time, talking to people all the time, engaging with a lot of different kinds of people. So you have to be extroverted, you have to be comfortable and excited talking to a lot of people all the time, because unlike someone like maybe a director or a writer or an artist, a producer is out there talking to people more than they are sitting at home and executing a single piece of creative vision. Although there are all things you do by yourself, a lot of things you have to do by yourself, you do really have to be an extroverted person. So, okay, what is the next thing that I think animation producers should be or should have in their personality type? Is really to be a thick-skinned person. So being a thick-skinned person means that there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you, whether that be a personality type that doesn't suit you, or a bit of bad news, or a difficult situation with a budget or a schedule, or a hard contract, or just hard times. The producer really has to be thick-skinned and take the brunt of all of that bad news and take the brunt of a lot of that stress coming externally in. And I like to tell people going into this business, if you're going to be a producer, this is not really the place for a fragile ego, a fragile personality, a person who maybe has a difficult time with ups and downs. This can be a hard business, and it really takes the strongest of the types of people out there in order to succeed when things are good and when things are bad. All right, so what's another thing or another requirement of a type of person who's a producer? Well, that is to be a multitasker. So ultimately, as I'll explain in the rest of this course, being a producer means that you're tackling a lot of things at once. So there's going to be a lot of chess pieces on the board moving at the same time. And so none of these balls can be dropped. None of these balls can be totally forgotten, even though something might only need attention once a month, or once every 2 weeks, or once every 3 days, or twice a day. All of these different things that are happening simultaneously, a producer has to keep at the top of their mind. So if you're not a multitasker, if you're not a person who knows how to bounce and bounce and bounce, and you require a single task to complete over 5 or 6 months, maybe producing is not for you. So, okay, let's move on. So more specifically for the world of animation, I think a producer in the world of animation has to have a passion, but not necessarily a specific talent in animation. So what that kind of means is, let's say you're a lover of cartoons, you're a lover of feature films that are animated. That's great, that's important. But if you find that you are just interested in drawing, or you're an incredible artist, or you're an incredible voiceover person who can imitate any kind of animated voice out there, that's kind of where the line between a producer and a maybe more specific talent should be. So a producer has to be relatively broad. Now, of course, there are writer producers, there are director producers, there are artist producers, but kind of almost similar to what I talked about with multitasking, you have to be able to understand and be interested in the entire process all at once. And if you love cartoons, it's going to come naturally to you because you love everything about it. But if you have a specific singular talent, you might fall into one of those categories, like a producer, illustrator, character designer, storyboard artist, as opposed to a producer who might be more generally interested but not specifically talented in one aspect of the craft. Okay, so leaning off that, having a passion but not necessarily a specific talent, I also like to say that a successful producer really should have a talent and a propensity for learning multiple disciplines. So really a producer who can get into a specific kind of contract, or a specific type of tax rebate structure, or a new technology and software for animation production, or a brand new marketing trend of what kids are into now and what screens they're watching, or how a new generation from millennial to Gen Z to Gen Alpha to Gen Beta, how does their consumer behavior change? all these little expert areas of science, of marketing, of economics, of technology, creativity. A producer should be interested in kind of diving into all of these, making them all part of their total wisdom that they pass on to the rest of the production. So if you don't love to learn, if you don't love to switch subjects around, again, maybe this is not the place for you. But if you do, maybe producing is good for you. Okay, two final things I want to mention. One is if you're trying to be a producer and you're trying to figure out if this is the right path for you, I've always felt that you have to have a certain patience for processes and a certain impatience for inefficiencies or legacy ways of working or bureaucracy. Now, what does that mean when we get down to the details? Well, a lot of producing is a process. So whether it's a large production, whether it's a CG pipeline, whether it's a 2D animation pipeline, whether it's how to optimize and work with YouTube, really those processes take time, and you have to have patience to let those things play out, to let something be completed. And a producer with patience can track all that and feel confidence that all of that will land, and also help navigate and edit and kind of make sure you kind of land the ship, as they say. At the same time, a successful producer over years, someone who's going to continue their career for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they have to have an impatience for bureaucracy, an impatience for inefficiency, impatience for holding on to an old way of working that doesn't work anymore, because a producer has to always be recreating the process, moving into a new area, really pivoting so that wherever they see a vision moving, they have to understand that maybe that's the way I should go. So balancing that impatience with patience, that trust with the process, and that need for a paradigm shift, I think is really important for making a successful producer. Okay, so last thing I'll tell you and end off this specific chapter of the course is really this broad set of things that you might not think of when you think about the cool and exciting world of being in animation and having that producer credit, which is, do you enjoy business? Do you enjoy management? Do you enjoy scheduling and legal affairs? Or ideally, some combination of all of the above. So these subject matters seem very businessy. They seem very non-creative, and in many ways they are. In some ways they can actually be very creative. But all of these things add up to the grown-up part of being a producer, the things that don't get all the glamour. Can you close a contract properly? Do you know how to find efficiencies in a schedule? Do you know how to take a person who is only moderately performing and know when to let them go, as opposed to know how to hire someone who's going to do 2.5x of what you're originally hired, or to find someone in one position and know how to pivot them to another position? Or here's a new structure we can make money, or here's a new way we can raise money, here's a new way we can save money. All of these things make an excellent producer. So, okay, that is this segment. I hope that was valuable for you. I hope internally you're kind of ticking in your head, hey, guess what? I'm 3 out of 5, or I'm 5 out of 7, or I'm 2 out of 7. Boy, this isn't for me. Either way, that is my totality of the list of what I think it takes in your personality to be a creative producer. Okay, I'll see you in the next chapter.